All right. What's up, brother? What you working on over there?
And just trying to help these brokerages. We've got coming over to EXP. They got questions. Going in and talking to the powers that be that can answer those questions.
Nice, man. What kind of questions?
This was actually really good question. So we get this every once in a while from brokerages when they're moving over is, do we have a referral company that you can put licenses in? You know, like when you're retired and you just send referrals in, you know what I'm saying? And we didn't. I had a couple people ask that and they just told me into Q2. So it's going to be done. So that's what I love about this company, bro. They're always doing work. You know what I'm saying?
What would you say are the top? Let's say that if someone was looking on YouTube and they were going to watch this video, and the title was the top questions people ask when considering EXP Realty. What would you say are your top questions? I had a couple good ones today. So
man, I get a lot of questions. That's for sure. I mean, there's educated questions and there's uneducated questions.
What's your number one question?
Gosh, the number one question that people ask.
Yeah.
If they've looked at it and done the research, it's generally, there's questions around I think the question that whether they ask it right or not, their concern is how am I going to operate in this new environment without an office potentially, right?
Okay.
Like they're thinking there's no office. So how do I communicate? Like they feel like they're going to be on an island when it's actually the exact opposite of that,
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest objection or mental block for some people, that they don't understand how it's going to work and how much better it is, right? It's like the first time you order DoorDash and your food just shows up and it's hot and you didn't have to get out of the house and go get it. You're like,
right.
Oh, this is just way better. Well, I can't believe I ever go and get my own food. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
It's just better, right? But like sometimes we don't recognize how much better something's going to be until you're in it. And I think that's really the question in a lot of people's heads is trying to understand how they're going to, what if I have a question for my broker? How am I going to get a hold of them? That whole collaboration piece with Facebook Workplace is just a killer. It's a killer tool. It's just way better than the way we used to communicate.
That's awesome. I had an interesting question today about teams. It was a team question. So it was like, the question was specifically was, why would EXP's platform be better for building a team than, going to another brokerage?
Right. Well, that's an easy one.
Yeah. What would you say to that?
Well, first of all, it's one cap, one set of fees.
There
so
you
can, instead of having to pay to set up shop in every market you go to, you only pay one cap, one set of fees. As a team leader, you can build teams around the country. It just makes, which I would say historically, expansion was a failed model. Unless you had, and not that Gary didn't say that, it was in the manual on page 1. You need to have 250,000 to start thinking about expansion. And so, but this makes it possible. I think this makes it a more viable thing that could be scalable. That's for sure.
And I think also that, the thing for me, this is what I told him. I said, listen, when I first started, I think there's two things. I remember when I first started in real estate, nobody knew what a team was. So to just be clear, obviously you did, but nobody in my market, they didn't even have the accounting systems to put in place. One of the owners and the number one agent in my city told me straight up that, nobody would work like that. That's not going to work. And later, he obviously retracted that statement. And so I think at EXP, if you look at the team model is broken. And so the fundamental thing is that I think EXP allows for, it provides solutions to the team model that most people don't even know is broken if they've never got to the point of having a team that is operating at a high level, because they don't know what it's like being unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know. And so I had to future cast him. The first question I asked him is how many agents he had on his team. The answer was 35.
It's a lot of agents on a team.
And he'd been in real estate less than 3 years.
Yeah, he's going to learn a lesson or two in the next 2 years.
So the only reason I asked him why, this is what I asked him. I said, I didn't even know how long he had been. He said, I have 35 agents on my team. I was like, he said, I'm not a large team. I was like, no, you're pretty large. Yep. And I said, but how many of your agents leave you? And he was like, well, he's a super nice guy. He just said, I have very low attrition. I've only lost 3 people last year. And I said, oh, really, how long have you been in real estate? And it was, well, 2.5 years. I was like, well, that's the reason. I said, even the best man in my wedding hung around for, 3.5, right?
Right.
So you haven't got to the point. And I remember when Rob Edgerly called me up, and it was probably 6 months ago. And he said, Mike, man, I'll never forget sitting through all those meetings where y'all said, well, one day this was what was going to happen. And I would never say anything, but I would always personally think that is not going to happen to me. And he said, man, if it didn't happen to me, I'm going through exactly everything y'all talked about. So I had to explain it to him that, dude, if you came behind the closed doors and got around the people who are doing what you're wanting to do, but have been doing it for twice as long, you would want to know what troubles they would whisper in their own ear if they were you, right? If they were where you are right now, what would somebody who is netting through building a team, what advice would they go? What avoidance would they suggest, mistakes to not make? And so I said, the thing about EXP, the reason why some of the top teams are coming over is because the truth is that you get aligned at some point where you really start to care about the people, and the natural team model has a lid on the opportunity. And, some of those lids are, hey, you can only work buyers because obviously different teams have different rules. Some people have removed that lid and let them work sellers. But I said, here's the thing. You're either sitting down with your agents and knowing where their ultimate goals are and creating a plan for them to get there, or they're sitting down with their spouse at night telling them what their next move is because they don't feel comfortable like they could tell you, because you might not you might not be in alignment with that, So if you create that ascension plan and paint that vision for them, but at the same time you let them know, just like an expansion, you say, listen, you're not ready to join a team unless you have XYZ set of core capital, and these are the things you need to avoid. A lot of people might say, well, you know what? I'm not going to make more money getting off the team. In fact, this is actually a good deal. But it's through that radical transparency with that person and not trying to manipulate, meaning look out for you.
Right.
But when it's to look out for them, then I think good agents will stick around, and some will want to go out there and jump out there. But the cool thing is, on the EXP platform, you're incentivized to want them to be successful. You want them to get 100 agents on their team.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, it definitely, it solves problems and you're 100% right. Every person that I talk to that's less than 3.5 years really into the team, they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And that's the dangerous place to be if you're not open-minded and you don't realize. And I've had some great people that I talk to that get it, right? That they're like, man, you know what? These guys have been through this way more times. I'm listening for what I'm missing, right? Like I love talking to people like that, but that's not most people. Most people, it's hard for them to understand when the pain isn't real, what's coming, and that you need a business model that solves that problem for you. And that's, again, the teams that have been, torn down and built back up again, tore down and built back up again. They're all very aware of that problem. And if you haven't had a team longer than 3.5, 4 years, you haven't seen. And the reason for that is, if you break it down, it's because they start to get repeat and referral business from the business you gave them the first 3 years. Yeah. And so, you can say, well, that's my business, but they reach back out to them, right? And so to them, that's their business. No matter where they would have gone, they would have reached back out to them. So you're not in control of that business once you hand off the relationship to a client. That the lifetime value of that relationship belongs to that agent. Whether they do a good job or not with that, lifetime value is on them. But if they do a good job, which is the agents we're talking about, the ones that end up selling 3, 4, 5, 6 homes a month for you, that are killing it, you're like, man, you wake up every day, please, I hope they're not leaving. That would be the worst thing that could happen this year, right? And that's just the painful part of running a team. But you got to get in alignment with them. You got to show them opportunity that's bigger than just being on your team. And if you don't, number one, you won't attract that kind of talent, because people will see the lid and they won't want to come join you because they don't want to be a part of your little party and be on your team. That's not what they're looking for. So you can attract more talent, better talent, by having a vehicle and being able to show people, hey, I'm going to help you build just like I did. I'm going to help you take you through the phases so you don't make the mistakes that I made. That's the value in EXP, is having not just a platform, but the business model that allows you to do it.
Oh yeah, dude, that's huge. And this gentleman, I'll just give you a question he asked me, and this was a real question. I mean, I had this today. He said, hey, well, I like all of that. Tell me about, the sustainability. How is this rev share going to be sustainable? That's what he asked me. So he's a smart guy. He's asking the right questions.
Yeah. So, I do get these some surface level, and that is a question that comes up from time to time. Okay, well, sustainability, and that comes from, generally speaking, either they're very very intelligent, or somebody's trying to throw shade on the model and say that it's not sustainable, and so they're throwing that out there because they don't know why or what to ask, and so they ask that question. Same thing about the stock or and things of that nature. But there's a sustainable rev share program in place. I mean, one of the challenges we all want the stock to go up because we all have lots of shares of stock, and if the investors in the market can't understand the business model and don't know if it's going to be sustainable, meaning it's impossible to know how many people you're going to have that have unlocked how many levels at any given point in the company and its growth, you can't really say it's sustainable or not sustainable. You don't know if you would be overpaying and have more paid out in revenue share or less paid out in revenue share than whatever number you're thinking it's going to be, right? Like
okay.
I would definitely not want to be in the driver's seat and not have a way to know how much I'm going to be paying out in revenue share. And so, the fact that they only pay 50% out in revenue share guaranteed is a way to have a knowable number. Here it is. It's 50%. And we're going to have 50% to run the company. And that's not going to be a threat that we're paying out more in revenue share than what we have to run the company. So as the company continues to grow, now there's a benchmark in place. And it's guaranteed to be 50%. So if the cost, as this company scales, which if you really look at any company that scaled at the level in the growth at this speed, none of them were profitable. We are profitable. We're cash flow. We're building cash. If you look at the 10K, and you say, oh my gosh, they're losing money. No, we're not. That's because of $30 million worth of equity that at this year in 2020 that they're going to give out to agents and ownership in the company. That is a paper loss. So it's not a real loss, but it's a paper loss. So you have to show that as a loss as far as SEC is concerned. You have to show that. So that's why when you look, it looks like we're not making money, but we're actually massively profitable, building cash, own our technology, have no long-term debt. So like when you really truly know, which we had to learn, right? Like I didn't know all the answers to these questions until I went to go, until people asked me good questions like what you're talking about here with the rev share. But once you really truly unpack the model and look at the decisions they're making and how it's going to impact the growth of the company, how it's going to impact the stock value over time, all of these things, they're making really smart decisions with the company.
That's and the truth is I didn't say it exactly the same, but I think principally I said the same thing. So I'm glad I answered that right.
Right.
Because it really is. Sustainability comes there's an economic model. We pay out 50%. That's and what I think is what I learn on most of my calls with people is there's always, even this gentleman, he had access, probably better access to the answers to his questions, but even some of his questions he did not know, or some of them he actually knew, but there were some things that in the real world were true. He did 150 transactions, and he wasn't certain that he would be an icon. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, he did 40 million, 150 transactions. Yeah, you're probably going to be an icon, right. And we had a separate conversation. He was, he wasn't even incorporated. We got to that level of detail. I was like, why aren't you a corporate? Why are, corporations are taxed at a lower tax than, how are you paying yourself? Remember Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits, yep. Chapter number 1, how you pay yourself. And so I think we had a valuable conversation. And I think that's one of the things about EXP is that there's people that are willing to have those conversations with you about your business. But I do get this, and they a lot of the times they ask, about the training, about the websites, about the tools, and all of those different things. And specifically, this gentleman, he said, how are you guys going to help me grow my business? And why are you laughing?
Because I'm glad they ask questions like that.
Yeah. Well, how would you answer that?
Well, first of all, I would say let's look at the track record of success that we've had in building successful teams.
Yeah.
And then I would point to the number of successful teams that we've helped people build in successful companies. Ultimately, some of them going independent and building their own brand and building a big company,
building franchises.
Right. We did a pretty good job of helping people do that. So the good news is we, A, have done it ourselves. B, we've done it for other people and have a track record of performance in doing that. And C, we're financially incentivized to do the same thing for you without charging you. So,
right.
that's the it's the one thing you can't get anywhere else you go. I mean, you could say, oh, I'm going to get ownership at Fathom or whatever. Fine. Okay. But you don't get us.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big difference in having us in your corner to help you navigate the things. No different than the value you added in that conversation while he's trying to vet the opportunity of joining EXP. You taught him a whole bunch of stuff he knows that, that he needs to know, right? That he needs to learn. So that, plugging in to our systems, processes, training, everything that we have, I mean, I think it's priceless. I mean, we've built more multi-million-dollar teams than anybody at this point.
Yeah, yeah, and the truth is that it is better for him because his success. What people don't realize, you can make one wrong decision. This is based upon my experience. You can miss the busy season. I said I was doing an event the other day, and I'm going to admit this, but don't hold it against me. But back early in my career, I did the grocery carts. And when I did the grocery carts, it cost me $7,500 to be on every grocery cart. It wasn't a good idea. It was a bad investment. And I remember later talking to you, Jay, and you had done the grocery carts too. and I came up with a system. Before you buy that stuff, why don't you just call Jay and ask him first if he's done it yet? Because I could have saved $7,500. Yeah, I could have just made one phone call. And I think that people don't realize, a lot of people reach out to us and we call them unstuck calls. They're 15-minute calls in our calendar. Sometimes mine are scheduled when I'm in the car. So we have calendars that are available for all of our partners across North America and Canada. And basically, they reach out and they jump in the calendar for 15 minutes. They're trying to make a quick decision. No different than I used to call you when I first started, and it's just like, I'm trying to make a decision on this. And the truth is, our core belief, our philosophy that we've kind of managed our businesses by was always, having this urgency. And urgency, I think, is really at its fundamental level is, let's make a decision on this quicker than we would. So if we know we need to make a decision, and a lot of people do, but they don't have a system for making decisions. Mm-hmm. They don't have a system for making a decision whether they should have chat on their website. Most people's website, they're not producing consistent deals from. They don't even know what their conversion is on their website. This guy over here, he's over here before this podcast recording. He's over here telling me his average customer follower cost on Instagram and, telling me about, I was like, man, seek the best to be the best. He's a student, the epitome of always learning. And so, if you've never managed a huge budget, if you've never really been successful with taking over a neighborhood, if you've never had a ton of past clients that sent you referrals repeatedly every year, if you've never been able to increase your average production rate per agent, which this guy has 35 agents.
What's that worth?
Yeah, I said, what would it be worth if we helped all your agents sell one more home a month? He said, we were through a Zoom. He was like, that would be worth a lot. I was like, well, that's where we could start. That's leverage.
Right.
And so the truth is that EXP has the compensation alignment where the better the people do. And we've been referring to it as the 6-star coaching because no matter where you fall in, there's 6 people above you that have a vested interest that you have access to. And you said it the other day on the Zoom, you said, listen, I give people my phone number. They can call. Some people do, some people don't. Don't you find that there's one or two people who call the most?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing what you're saying too right now. So I literally just had this message this morning. So I had a call. Somebody on Instagram was one I talked about this morning and asked me about EXP. I don't know what she knows. I don't know anything about it other than she said, I'm thinking about EXP. I'd like to have a conversation. Turns out she's working with John Pugh, who's in our 7th level, I believe.
Yeah.
He's an OP from KW, big guy, killer, a whale. And so she tells me who she'd been talking to. And I was like, yeah, man, you would be in my group. You're in good hands. Let me
edifying him.
Yeah, right. And so I messaged John and told him, hey man, we just talked to Angela. She's good to go. She's ready to join. You need to reach out to her. And so he's like, hey man, I know you're super busy. That's what everybody says. First of all, I'm not that super busy. Let me just be real honest. My calendar has blue sky in it all the time because this is what I basically do. They don't have anybody to manage. I don't have any employees to manage. I'm basically helping all our team, our group.
Right.
And he's like, I know you're super busy. Just curious if you're open to working on some of my bigger recruits and what the best way to do it is. And what did I send him?
Yeah, that's awesome.
My calendar link.
Can you forward that to me? Because I'm going to get in your calendar, see if you'll help me with.
No.
What do you mean? No, I'm being serious. I'm trying to take over a neighborhood, bro.
Right. Well, that's a fun stuff.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff.
So what would you do if you were going to take over a neighborhood? Just as a little side note.
Well, first, do the math on the neighborhood first. What's the size of the opportunity?
So pick the right neighborhood.
I picked the right neighborhood first. Another thing that, that I had a call this morning. I was helping one of our agents with this, not with this strategy, but with open house. And she lives in an area that she's currently targeting to become the dominant agent, but you can't put out more than 5 open house signs.
Right.
And she's wanting you to do the ultimate open house system.
Yeah.
I said, then I would do it outside your target area. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not do open houses with only five open house signs. We know how that works. Right. Let's go where we can 10X that. And then let's get the seed money, and then let's come back and revisit, take over the neighborhood. Right. Like if you either got the cash or you don't. Right.
Yep.
And her alternative, unfortunately for her, is to go back to getting referrals from, Berkshire Hathaway and being on, that's where she came from, was like all my deals came from the person that's in charge of referrals at another company, right? So a lot of Ebby agents around here do that, right? Like they stay there because somebody's going to feed them,
right?
So like that's the worst feeling in the world, because you're not in control of your business. So like we got to get you business that you control, right? And so that, anyways, it's just another example of like, I would look at that too. I would look at, does this neighborhood I can go after, can I promote it the way I want to promote it with signage? There's not any limitations to what I can do as far as executing on the marketing plan. Look at the total amount of gross commission. I'd look at the competitors and what percentage of the market they have, and make sure there's not a Goliath in that neighborhood that I'm trying to dethrone, because that's just not a smart strategy. It's hard to get mind share. That's all you're trying to do, by the way. To dominate a neighborhood means that they think of you first. And you always use the analogy of like, how many people on your street know who you are? Right. Yeah. It's like most people, most.
I think everybody on your street knows you now.
Well, they do, but I don't think the funny thing is, I don't think they know I'm in real estate, and I'm not really in real estate, selling real estate. Yeah. But they don't know, but they all know who I am now.
Right.
They're pretty cool. It's a pretty cool street, to be honest with you. But like if you live somewhere, that's, as you say all the time, it's like, how many of those people know who you are, what makes you different, and why they should hire you when the time comes to sell. Right. Like and then, you take that, and if the first person that comes to mind for everybody on your block, at least hopefully the people that live right next door to you would think of you first. Right. Then, how do you scale that across an entire neighborhood where you're top of mind for everyone, right? Like that everyone would think of you first.
What would you do?
Well, I would make sure that I had a marketing campaign, both digitally and direct mail. I would absolutely use direct mail today, because I think most people don't, and they don't do it very well if they do. And I would have a campaign that hits them, between 15 and 25 times inside of two months, with both professionally relevant and personally relevant marketing. To my face as big as it could be, and all I want them to remember is Jay Kinder, jkinder.com. I wouldn't be having some website that's not my brand. It'd be my face, my sign, my brand, and over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I'd hit them over the head as many times and the frequency is where people mess up.
How important is a value proposition to that strategy?
Well, it can be done without one. It's just a lot harder.
So what if you did not do? And I'm just curious, if you didn't have one, or I guess let's just.
You better have a call to action that's somewhat compelling.
Yeah. What would your call to action be?
Man, I just had this conversation the other day, and there's two angles you can go. One is, again, what you're looking for is that person that has a life event. And they, at first anyways, with marketing, it's someone that has a life event and they go, oh shit, we got to sell the house. Who are we going to call? Right. In that moment, if you're the first person they think about, then you got a chance. Right.
Yeah.
If it ain't you, and then you ain't getting
I just wanted to push that.
Right. Crickets.
Yeah.
Are out. But so that's the first thing. If they don't think of you, then you're not going to get that phone call. And so hopefully if they think of you, they're thinking of you as the solution to that. Like your home sold guaranteed in X number of days is an example.
Right.
Is a strong one. It works. I mean, we know it works. I don't necessarily like it because you're not necessarily always going to guarantee or buy their house depending on how you run that program. But it does work. And so, the other thing is an instant offer, which we did for years, right? We ran those ads for years. And now we have the iBuyers that are out there doing it. But today, I think the angle is still, I believe that the angle is to be the person that can get you the most offers on the home.
So we ran a campaign for the iBuyer last week, and generated a deal that ended up getting purchased. Nice. And the acquisition was like $453.
That's about 3 times cheaper than I would have thought.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you should have to spend $1,500 to make $10,000 in an acquisition of a seller lead. Right?
Yeah. So, and that's what people don't know. And when I've been doing the boot camps, I would always tell people, or the workshops that we've been doing, the Double Your Business Lives, the truth is, and that is a great point, is that, I asked the audience, I said, what would you think is a CPA, a cost per appointment? And so when we were doing Partner in 2016, everything pivoted off of CPA. So we would, in Forney, we would get a cost per appointment of $268 for, running Facebook ads, but in South Lake it would be $500. Right. But I knew, because I did direct mail for did magazines that were in the mailbox. I knew that my mailbox, direct mail, I was happy with $400 to $500. So to me, if I got something for $268, that was cheap. But when somebody has no realization or any awareness, or never done any of those math, because most of the people, 90% of the people, they have no idea what their website's converting at. They're not collecting any pixels of any site. They're not retargeting anybody to know, hey, retargeting brings that cost down by 30%.
All right.
They just don't know, like, bottom of funnel. Because for an example, when we ran a campaign for Chad, his average cost was $9, but when we retargeted him, the average retargeting cost per lead was $3 and change. So the combined, it brought it down to $6, right? And so having that conversation, which goes back to what you were saying, man, hey, my average subscriber, dude, is at $3. What people don't realize is, no matter what you're doing, whether you're joining EXP, whether you're taking over a neighborhood, whether you're setting your goals for the year, whether you're losing weight, it starts with the math. What can be measured, can be monitored, can be improved, and nothing works perfectly. But you have to have, and this is you. I mean, I've said this what I envy the most about you is the math. We were driving just the other day on the phone. I was talking to you, and it was yesterday. And you said to me, you know what? And that's the point. If they can't even do the math themselves, right? You were saying, if they can't even do the math themselves, that is the point. They should be at that level of production. They should have the math figured out. And what people don't know is that if you've never been in a situation where, by not doing the math, you have so much offense on the line that if the math is wrong or your theory is wrong, you like for you, I'll give you an example. And I was telling him yesterday, which is the chef over here cooking up the media, Jimmy on the edits. I was telling Jimmy in reference to the math, about Steve Jobs, how Steve Jobs had more than one person that could do design. He might have a master designer or just like a guy that can do a logo, right? And so, like, putting people on a project, he had 10 people that could code in this language. Right. And for you, you when you do the math, I mean, I think it's important for people to know that you were probably the first person that I knew that had a full-time marketing person on staff, right? Like,
that was my best hire ever too, man, because she was killer.
That's my point, dude. Yeah. That's my point. But you knew the math. Like, you knew what your salary cap was. You knew that you knew that the business is growing. We need to be investing a certain percentage in people. And so it's not knowing. You're not doing the math at the beginning because it's the most important thing. Although it is important, it's because you're building the discipline and framework. Because if you don't do that, the alternative is to guess, and you really can't scale through guessing. Because if you guess wrong, you're gonna
it'll eventually catch up to you.
Yeah, because you can't guess right enough times in a row. It's like being at the roulette table.
Yeah.
I watched this dude
unless your average sale price is really high, but even then the other costs go up incrementally as well. Not quite as much as the average sale pricing and average commission, but I've seen people get away with it for a lot longer in average sale prices that are much higher. But eventually it catches up to you.
Yeah, think about what would happen, dude, right now. And I'm just saying, like, imagine if what happened in China happened in Sacramento, California. A guy comes up with coronavirus. They just found a dog that tested positive, walks around town for 2 days. Next thing you know, they got 61 people in one city. There's over 18,000 or 83,000 people now positively infected. What happens if it happened in your city? What happened in China? The city shut down, right? Yeah. What happens if like if your city shut down?
We'd be canceling soccer practice.
We would be. I wouldn't be around no little kids. Let me tell you something. Little kids would be like the real monsters.
Hang on, let me see if I can get a hazmat suit. Where do you order a hazmat suit?
Yeah, I did.
Did you look that up?
I did. I ordered a mask yesterday. I told Jimmy.
I'm gonna get the full suit.
Yeah. I'll get 2 of them, please. But the point is that the math tells you how much air you have, right? Because in the math, right? In the math, you know what your costs are, and you know what you can afford to invest in. And the point that I was trying to make that you would have to do in the business is you'd have to have a budget. So you would have to say, okay, marketing, okay, y'all have $5,000 more to invest, But you couldn't let just marketing just go do whatever they wanted, and all the other people just do whatever they wanted. I mean, like
nobody has to answer any of the results of the effort they're putting forward and money spent in ads.
Yeah. You got to have a budget and some assumptions and those sorts of things. And I think that's operating at a higher scale. But you know what? That's where you get when you practice how you play, right?
Right. Yeah. You're that with. Someone like,
did you not do the math on the way home from Caldwell Banker after you saw someone win a trophy and you told your mom and dad on the plane what?
I reverse engineered exactly what I would have to do to hit it, and I told them
was it unbelievable, even impossible to think that you could have done it on that plane?
My parents thought I was crazy.
And did you do it?
I did exactly.
You did exactly what it is, and you did it every year because you learned how to do the math.
Yeah, right. I understood the math, and then I understood who needed to do what to get to to hit the numbers.
Yeah,
right. Like it was just that. I was going to say something about this hazmat suit because I'm about to order it. You really want one?
If you order one, I'll order one. We'll protect the gate.
Right.
We've got to get Jimmy one.
People would be staying away from you if you had that on. They'd be like,
yeah. Shoot. If we had like 3 people in like a little truck out front, like a big white van, and 3 people in hazmat suits in the front yard, what would happen? Probably a helicopter would show up.
On the neighborhood website, shit would be going off. You know what I'm saying? People would be like trying to figure out what's going on.
Hey, you want to come to the open house?
Here's one for $2,250. It must be a really good one.
Yeah, that's probably good. I'm just going to use my... But man, dude, well, I know you got some stuff to do today, man. Anything you want to end with today?
Man, yeah, what I would say is... man, what do you got to lose to reach out and try to learn, more about how you could be in alignment with us, how we can help you grow your business in whatever capacity that might be. That's what I would say. You'd be crazy not to reach out to us.
Yeah. So here's one thing I'm willing to do, and I've done this for a handful of people. Please don't waste the time. But if you feel like you need a plan, you need help doing the math, if you would really like to have like a confidential call, I do have a place where you can go. You're going to go to Reese 2020, and there's a little few questions that you would have to fill out. But at the end of that, we could end up jumping on a call, and I'm open to it if you are, to looking at your business and having a discussion on how we can help you reverse engineer where you are right now, where you're trying to go. And regardless, whether that's you're trying to build a team, expand into other markets, or I talk to new agents all the time. And I talked to old Rachel. She joined us on December 10th. She's at 43% of her cap already. She'll be capped by April 1st, I think is what she said. So anyway, we can help you. If people want to reach out to you, Jay, how do they get a hold of you?
Go to jkinder.com or follow me on the gram.
On the GIG, jkinder.com. Check them out. What's your Instagram handle?
jkinder82.
jkinder82. And you can check me out on Instagram, Michael I. Reese, or on YouTube at where you're watching right now, YouTube/Michael Reese. It's the only time I ever got my own name, dude. It's the only time. What does the 82 stand for?
82 was my football jersey number. That's just the number I always go to.
I like that.
Look, they hit me with the pop-up.
The gas mask buyer guide. Great marketing. Need help figuring out which gas mask to buy?
How did you know?
I love it.
Dude, they're just killing it. They're like,
you know what they're doing?
Making money.
Get money.
Get money.
Get money.
All right, y'all take care.